G'day poker people, I'm on a mission to pay off my home mortgage debt in the next 3 years strictly from poker winnings, so I return to the One-Eyed Jacks in Sarasota to grind some more 510. We go on a little bit of a sun run, so let's get to gambling, let's go. We are in the mix for 2,000 bangers when we get dealt pocket 10s under the gun. I go ahead and raise it up to 30 and I only get called by Dr. James Wilson in the small blind. So we're heads up to a flop of Queen 10, 6 baby, let's go. We flop a set to kick things off when the villain checks it over to me. Let's start trying to build a pot here. I go ahead and make it 25 and then the villain throws in the call. So we're off to a turn which is a 4 of clubs putting out backdoor clubs. Now when the villain checks it over to me, I think we can get very greedy with our bet sizing here. The villain's got a cold call in the small blind with all of the ace queens, all of the king queens, queen jack as well, and if they have something that's like a pair and a club draw, I don't think they're going to fold either. So we can get very greedy with our sizing here. Definitely want to go ahead and overbet. I make it 150 bangers, and when the villain calls, the pot is a very interesting number. So we head off to the river, which is actually a pretty bad one. It's a 9 of clubs. I say this is a bad river because not only backdoor clubs get in, but the obvious king jack draw gets in, and when the villain leads out for 200, I'm really not loving it. Think they're going to have king jack pure in their range, but I have a set here. I'm not going to fold, not going to raise either. Leaves me with one option. I do throw in the call, and then the villain says my favorite words to hear at the poker table: "You're good, let's go." I turn over my hand, he mucks his, and we're raking in the first pot with a set. You love to see it. Next up, I open 8-5 offsuit from the button and get called, and then I end up flopping trips. The villain leads out into me, so I throw in the trap. When the villain checks on the turn, I don't think he has much, so I bet small on the turn. He calls. On the river, I bet small again. He ends up folding on that one, but we're raking in a pot with trips before we play a pot limit Omaha double board bomb pot, where I actually think I overplayed my hand and ended up bet folding on the turn, so we lose a big back there. Then I pick up king queen of clubs, and I end up bluffing on the river, but getting a worse hand to fold anyway. They folded face up, and we're raking in another pot to win some back. Let's go. Next hand up, the same doctor from the first hand limps the button, and I'm in the big blind with queen jack offsuit. Close whether we want to raise this one or not. I decide to check it in this instance, so we're heads up to a flop of 6 deuce 4 with 2 spades. Decent chance we have the best hand with queen high, so I check it over to the villain, but when they go ahead and bet for 15, a lot less likely we have the best hand now, and I actually think this is a great spot to check raise. This board is going to look great for my range when I check the big blind, so I can just have all of the straights, all of the 2 pairs, all of the sets here. Trying to represent it to get the villain off of a 1 pair hand. I need to start off with a check raise here, so I bang it up to 75, but then the villain throws in the call. Really not loving that. I think their range is pretty strong here. They can have 2 pairs sets themselves as well as flush draws, so when the turns are 5 of diamonds, really not loving this spot. Very easy for them to have a straight here. Don't want to give up on the bluff just yet though. If the villain did call with a 6 on the flop or an overpair, very hard for them to call off on this turn since it looks like I'm going to have a bunch of 3s, so I want to put in a small stab here. I go ahead and make it 60, but then the villain throws in the call again. Really not loving it. They got that super strong range, especially when the river is a 6 of spades. The villain just has all of the nutted hands in their range on this river. Their range is like overpairs plus, so I don't really have much interest in bluffing into that strong of a range, so I go ahead and check it over to him, and when he bets 100, we have the easiest fold in the world here. And then the villain's actually kind enough to show 8-7 of spades, so he had a straight and he had a flush, he had it all. We were not going to win this pot. Next hand, we have pocket 7s, and we unsuccessfully set mine once again. Boy, this strategy of set mining really hasn't worked out for me. I need to improve on either hitting sets or maybe just folding these hands pre-flop. Next up, the under the gun player limps, and I'm in the hijack with queen 10 offsuit. I do go ahead and raise it to 50 here, probably a little bit too loose, but folding's boring. I make it 50, and then we get called by the under the gun limper, who's the doctor yet again. We've been battling this guy today, so we are heads up to a flop of queen jack jack with 2 spades. Very happy to hit top pair when the villain checks it over to me. Let's start building a pot here. I make it 50 and they throw in the call. So it heads up to the turn, which is the 8 of diamonds. Definitely not the best turn card in the world. 10-9 does get in as a straight. But when the villain checks it over to me, I still think it's worthwhile betting to try and get called by spade draws. If the villain has a hand that's like 8-10, pocket 10, something that's a pair and a gut shot, I think I'll call as well, as long as I don't get too greedy with my bet sizing. So I go ahead and make it 75, and then the villain does put in the check raise to 200. Definitely looks like they have a straight. Jack hijack's also completely possible. I think they're going to trap with a lot of those on the flop. So it's a range that beats us. I think this is a pretty easy spot to make a hero fold with top pair. So that's what I do. I end up mucking our hand, and the doctor's definitely got us back some. I try another unsuccessful set mine, this time with pocket sixes, and I'm just starting to think this strategy doesn't work out because it's been a bit of a leak for me this session for sure. Next up, Undertaker's best mate makes it 30 from the hijack, and I'm in the big blind with King 9 of spades. I think we have a pretty clear-cut call here. Would rather 3-bet with a polarized range out of position in this spot. So I just throw in the call. Let's see a flop, and the flop comes down at 10-6-7 with 2 spades. So we do flop a combo draw. Still going to check it over to the villain inflow, who puts in a C-bet for 25. Now I think this is a very clear-cut check raise. I think when the villain down bets on this flop, they can definitely have some strong hands like pocket jacks, ace 10, and then those hands probably will call a check raise now, but even if they do, we have a chance to outdraw on them, we have a chance to bluff on later streets, so I definitely want to go for it here. I make it 120 to go, and then the villain folds the 10 of diamonds face up. Wow, I was not expecting to fold top pair with just a check raise on the flop, but he mucks his hand, I muck mine, and I tell him, wow, good fold, but I'm honestly a bit bewildered, but also very happy to be raking in this pot so soon. Next hand up, the doctor's back at it again. He limps in early position, and then I'm in the hijack with 7 deuce of clubs. I go ahead and raise it up to 50. There's no small blind bounty or anything. It's just me kind of being an aggro fish. I will say though, I do like mixing in raises with the 7 deuce suited occasionally, just to sort of build a crazy table image and give a bit of action back to the game. Probably not advisable though, not the best strategy in the world. Whatever the case, I make it 50, and then we get called by Undertaker's best mate in the big blind, as well as the limper. So we're 3 ways to a flop of queen ace 5 with 2 clubs, so we do make the flush draw with the worst hand in poker when the action checks to me. I could go ahead and check here. I think both of the villains have a bunch of ace x hands in their range, which we would love to see a free turn against, but also if they have any pair that's worse than ace x, hard to imagine they're going to continue over multiple streets of barreling. So I choose the fun option. I go ahead and bet 75. Probably a mistake though when I get called by both of the villains. So we are still 3 ways to a turn. I'm in dire straits with the 7 deuce until the turns are 9 of clubs, baby. Let's go. We turn the flush. You'll love to see it. Now when the action checks me, definitely want to keep betting here. They still have all of the ace x hands in their range. Some of those are going to have flush draws now. They could have slow played 2 pair or set on the flop as well. So I think we can get really greedy with our bet sizing. Probably ideal bet size might be something like 305 Dale. In game I went ahead and bet 125. I really do not like this play. I think we can get much greedy, and we're starting to see some mistakes creeping into my game in this hand. Whatever the case, we do get called by Undertaker's best mate in the big blind, so we're heads up to a river, which is the 4 of diamonds. As I mentioned on the previous street, I think the villain's range is going to be a lot of like a top pair with a flush draw type stuff. We already know this villain's kind of tight because he folded his top pair to a check raise, so cannot get greedy with my bet sizing anymore. So I sized down to 200, but apparently this was too much because he folds the queen of clubs face up, and that's definitely a hand we could have got more value from on the turn. Next hand, I'm in early position with pocket aces, baby. Let's go. I make it 30 and I get 2 different calls. So we're 3 ways to a flop of queen 8-6 rainbow. We're out of position to 2 people here, so I think it's a good spot to check most of my range and get some informational advantage off of what the villains do. So I check it here. Unfortunately, the action checks all the way through. So when the turns are 9 of clubs, definitely want to start betting myself. It's a lot less likely the villains have a really strong hand like queen X here. So we just want to bet small, try and get them to come in with worse pairs, stuff that has a gut shot on this turn. So I go ahead and make it 50, and then I only get called by Undertaker's best mate on the button. So it heads up to a river, which is a bloody jack of diamonds. Absolutely god-awful river. There's a 4-liner to any 10, plus the villain just has a bunch more 2-pair type stuff. So I just check it over to him, really hoping he checks back, which he does not. He goes ahead and bets 175. If the villain is bluffing, this is a really good spot for them to do it, but I mean, come on, of course they're not. It's too many 2-pairs, too many straights out there. So I make a pretty disciplined laydown with my favorite hand in all of poker, and then the villain says to me, let me guess, you had ace high. And I tell him I had a little bit stronger than that. He mucks his card, so we're never going to know for sure, but I think this is a good fold in the long run. Next up, I absolutely blunder a pot limit Omaha double board bomb pot, which I'm sure will come as no surprise to the comment section. I check raise a nut flush draw on the top board and the second pair on the below board, trying to get the pot as least multi-way as possible, which completely fucks up when I end up getting 3 callers and I'm ended up to force to a lead shove on the turn when I completely brick, and really just overplaying my hand in these things again. But then I do win a little bit of that back when I have ace king in a 3-bet pot, and I'm starting to think maybe I should just stick to no limit hold'em. Goes a bit better for me. Next up, there's 2 open limps before I'm in the big blind with a 9-5, the Dolly Parton hand, suited variety this time. I decide to check it here, which I think is a pretty obvious play. So we end up going 3 ways to a flop of 4-9-5, baby, with 2 diamonds. Let's go. Love flop on the 2 pair. When the small blind checks it over to me, let's start building a pot with our monster here. I make it 25 and then I get called by both villains, so we're still 3 ways to a turn, which is a pretty bad one. It's the 3 of diamonds putting in the front door flush. Now when the small blind checks it over to me, I think it's extremely likely either of the villains has a flush. I mean, they limped in pre-flop, there's no filtering, so if they had hands like Queen 2 of diamonds pre-flop, I wouldn't be shocked. So it's just such a high frequency of flushes. I think betting here would actually be an overplay, so I check it over to the button. He goes ahead and bets 100, only slightly less than the size of the pot. When the small blind folds, I'm even more thoroughly convinced Undertaker's best mate has a flush, particularly since he's shown some tight biases in previous hands. Just very likely he has a super strong hand like a flush here. Are we getting direct odds to draw towards a full house? Absolutely not. So if we are going to call, we need to either going to be able to bluff him off of a flush on the river or win a bigger pot when we do hit our full house. And I just don't think either of those things are likely to happen. I mean, obviously one is going to be more likely than the other, but I'm really not trying to pay a full pot size bet to find out. So I make yet another disciplined fold here with the 9-5. The villain mucks his hand, and I'm very happy that I'm making disciplined folds. Of course, it's bleeding away at my stack though. In this next pot limit Omaha double board bomb pot, I bet small on the river to induce multiple calls, and it works, and I earn a few $100 of overlay because I bet small with the nuts on one board. So maybe we're crawling back in the pot limit Omaha hands. Let's go. Next up, we got the button straddle on, and I'm first to act in the small blind with 6-5 of spades. Now look, you want to be opening super tight, out of position to so many people, particularly with the button straddle on when they do have a bunch of incentive to call and play the pot in position, and I think 6-5 suited, just a little bit too weak to do that with. Folding is boring though. I go ahead and make it 80 bangers, and then I do get called by the Conspiracy King on the button. So it heads up to a flop of a 3-7-10 rainbow with the 7 of spades. I don't want to compound the mistake I made pre-flop by blasting into a range that has some strong stuff on this board, so I check it over to him. Fortunately, he checks back though, so we get a free turn, which is the Jack of Diamonds. Now I think this is a great spot to start bluffing. If the villain had 10x or stronger, he would have bet it himself on the flop most likely, so I think his range is just going to have a bunch of ace high junk. Sometimes he'll have a hand like king jack or ace jack or a diamond draw, but if we go and bet absolutely massive here, I don't think we're going to run into a stronger hand than that. So I go ahead and make it Mr. Worldwide 305 Dale, overbet bombing the turn as a bluff, but then the villain throws in the call, so definitely not ideal, and we're off to a river, which is a pretty bad one. It's the 10 of clubs. Doing these vlogs, there's one lesson I have learned: people do not like folding pairs on a board pairing river, to me in particular, maybe at all. So I really don't want to go ahead and overbet bomb it here to try and fold the villain off of ace jack or king jack. I think those hands are going to call, but of course I don't want to check and just know I lose with 6 high. I think if we use a small size here, we will be able to get the villain off of a turn straight draw or a turn flush draw. So I go ahead and down bet to 225, and then the button folds. So let's go. We kind of make maximum with our 6 high in this spot. You'd love to see it. Next hand up, there's 2 open limps before I'm in the low jack with ace king. Let's raise it up. I make it 60, and both of the limpers call. So we're 3 ways to a flop of ace 10 9 with 2 diamonds. Love raising ace king pre-flop and hitting top pair when the action checks to me. Let's start building a pot here. I go ahead and make it 100. and then both of the villains call. So we're still 3 ways to a turn, which is a 6 of clubs, 8-7 as a straight. But when the action checks to me, I definitely want to keep betting here. I think if we use a smaller size, we can expect to get raised by the straight or even a 2-pair that's slow played on the flop, although I think that's a bit less likely on a board this wet. So I go ahead and make a 200 here, and then I only get called by the doctor we've been battling all day. So we are heads up to a river, which is a 10 of clubs, a very clean river for us, very happy to not see a diamond. When the villain checks it over to me, I think most of their range is going to be missed flush draws or ace-x that definitely have a worse kicker than the king. So I think we have the green light to go ahead and absolutely bomb it here. I think the best size to bet will probably be something around 1,000. In game, I bet Mr. Worldwide 305 Dale. This is way too small. If the villain checked it over to me and I had a bluff, I would probably just not try to bluff him in this spot because it's going to be very unlikely. An ace folds on a board pairing river, as we discussed in the previous hand. So I'm just absolutely losing value here. Completely hate this bet size, costing me so much value, hundreds of dollars of value. I got a mortgage to pay off. I need to win that money. Whatever the case though, unsurprisingly, the villain does throw in the call. I show he marks, and even though we are raking in this pot worth over 1.5k, I feel like we could have won so much more here. What an absolute fumble betting so small on the river in the previous hand, just costing myself hundreds of dollars. I definitely think I am on tilt, but it's not like the regular type of tilt where you guys see me just play too many hands and just bluff too aggressively. It's kind of the opposite thing where I'm showing a passive bias and, you know, just betting small to ensure I get called, or maybe like low-key I was a little bit worried about running into a straight or a full house, even though it's obvious the villain never has that stuff from how the hand played out. It's so important I just refocus, make sure I make sane, rational decisions at the table and play that way rather than worrying about what my emotional state is at the time. My job is to make good decisions in poker hands and keep the recreational players entertained, and I was playing out of fear there and just not playing rational at all. So need to recenter and go back into the next hand absolutely fighting. And we absolutely bounce back in this next pot, Limit Omaha double board bomb pot, when we end up making a straight on the top board and the nut full house on the second board. So of course we are just trying to pile money into this pot, and the sun run begins because we actually end up scooping this whole damn thing. This pot is worth near 4,800 bangers. We are raking it in with our monster. I guess the villain had a worse full house on the board. We had the nut full house on. You absolutely love to see it. It is fun to sun run. Then I actually bluff to win a decent sized pot with Queen Jack offsuit before I end up making 2-pair with Jack 6, and I end up value betting it in a limp spot to get this heater absolutely toasting. Next hand up, the under the gun straddle is on, and we get one limper before I'm in the cutoff with Dos Ochos pocket 8s. I make it 125, and then I get called by the straddle as well as the limper. So we're 3 ways to a flop of ace 10 deuce with 2 diamonds. When the action checks to me, I think this is a good spot to take a free turn, in all honesty. I check it and we get that free turn, and boy am I glad we do, because it's the 8 of spades, baby. Let's go. We turn the set, and I think it's a really good spot for it because both the villains naturally checked it to me on the flop. They still have so many ace-x hands, so many flush draws, so many gut shots. So when the under the gun player checks and the conspiracy king bets out 200, I'm absolutely loving it. Definitely think we want to raise here. If we're going to get any more value from a flush draw in this hand, it needs to be now, so we need to raise. Having said that though, I don't want to use too large of a sizing. If the villain has a hand like ace queen or ace jack, he's just not going to be able to call an absolute bomb here. So I do blaze it up to my lucky number 420, which honestly I think is a bit too small. I think even going something like 500, 520, like ace jack just isn't going to fold. So could get more greedy here again, so maybe that passive bias is still poking through. Whatever the case though, the straddle folds and the conspiracy king does throw in the call. So we're heads up to a river, which is 9 of clubs. The villain checks it over to me, and it's a spot I think we can get too greedy. We're not going to be able to get anything from a flush draw, but even a hand as weak because ace jack isn't going to want to call an overbet bomb or anything. So I decide to size down a bit. I go ahead and make it 500 to go, and then the villain folds king deuce of diamonds face up. So it wasn't that much more value to get from that hand, unless we did raise bigger on the turn. Next hand, I'm in the hijack with Queen 10 offsuit. I make it 30, and then a certain aggressive communist is finally back. He 3-bets the cutoff to 125. When the action's on me, I actually think this is a pretty trivial fold with a hand this week. Having said that though, I've been sun running this session and definitely want to give a bit of action back to the game. So I do throw in a 2 loose call here. Whatever the case, we are heads up to a flop of a Queen King 4 with 2 hearts. I check it over to the villain in flow who c-bets for 100. We have decent showdown value here, and this aggressive villain definitely has bluffs on this board. There's nothing to do but call here. I throw in the call, and then we heads up to a turn, which is a 6 of diamonds. I check it over to the villain once again, who goes ahead and bets 225. Of course, I am concerned about running into ace king or a hand even stronger than that. Even if the villain was betting king jack, I wouldn't be totally shocked either with his aggressive table image. But there's flush draws out there. Ace jack, ace 10 both have gut shots. Even if he's just stabbing at this with like ace 5 of clubs because he completely missed, I wouldn't be shocked either. So I do decide to throw in the call. Definitely going to proceed with some caution going towards a river, which is the 7 of diamonds. I check it over to the villain once more, who goes ahead and bets 300, so less than a third the size of the pot. And I mean, I really don't love it here. It definitely looks like he has a king that's a bit worried about the run out. So I briefly consider check raising him as a bluff, but then I think about it, what does that really represent? Like, I called on the flop with 6-7 of hearts, like maybe that specifically, but I really don't think it incredibly represents much. So I do couch the idea of check raising as a bluff, and it becomes between, do I want a hero call or do I want to fold? I mean, every draw missed on this board. The villain's definitely capable of completely blasting at it with air, so I think we're good just enough to call in this spot, but it's definitely a call and expect to lose situation. But I call nonetheless, and then the villain does show ace king. Holy shit, we scoop another pot limit Omaha, double board bomb pot, 3,800 bangers in the middle. We have a straight up top and a boat down below yet again. Absolutely brutal cooler because the villain had a top set on the top board and trips on the second board. So we had a monster as well, and we are on the good side of a cooler. Let's go. What a monster stack we have run up this session. Over 9,000 bangers in front of us. Boy, you love to see it. And then in a pot limit Omaha bomb pot, we end up flopping a full house, but I actually decide to fold it. Really don't want to overplay my hands in these things. It feels very unnatural to me as a no limit hold'em player to fold a flop full house, but when we end up folding it, we get the best reassurance in the world when the villain actually shows us they did have a better full house on the same board. You love to see it. Next up, there's one limp before I'm in the low jack with ace-8 of spades. I make it 50, and then Karl Marx puts in the 3-bet. What more could you expect? He makes it 150, and then the button calls, as does the limper. It's very tempting to 4-bet bluff here. I know the aggressive communist has a bunch of 3-bet bluffs in his range, but honestly, I'm kind of worried about the button cold caller. Definitely a spot they could be trapping, hoping to induce a 4-bet bluff from me, perhaps. And because we are getting such a good price to see a flop and we're the last to act, I think calling is the slightly higher EV play, so that's what I go for. I throw in the call here, and then we're 4 ways to a flop of a 10-9-7 rainbow with no spades. When the action checks to me, you're going to check it to the pre-flop aggressor in flow, who goes ahead and c-bets 300. Then the button folds, but the limper calls. Now we're getting a great price to draw towards our open ender here, and I do worry about the limper calling pre-flop. I think if he has like a set here, or maybe even 2 pair, he probably won't check raise, trying to induce overcalls from me. So I throw in the call. We're still 3 ways to a turn, which is the 5 of hearts, no help to us, especially when the limper leads out for 600. Still very concerned about those 2 pairs and sets, so I really don't want to raise as a bluff here, wouldn't make sense, and we're getting a decent price to draw towards our straight. Problem is, if we get there, it'll be a 4-liner, it's kind of obvious, so I don't even think we would be able to get stacks in with the best hand there. So I actually make a pretty disciplined laydown with my open ender, and then Karl Marx throws in the call. So their heads up to a river, which is the 9 of spades. Very happy to say that we did miss, and the action actually checks through on the river, and then the limper shows a 10-9 offsuit. So there you go, he did have that 2-pair type hand, and then Karl Marx shows the pocket aces. So very, very happy with how this hand played out, that I didn't 4-bet rip pre, wouldn't have worked, and that I gave up my hand against a strong range there. Let's go. Next up, I absolutely fall on my face when I try to set mine with pocket 7s in a 3-bet pot and bleed off about $250 for that one. We got the under the gun straddle on for this one, and I'm first to act with pocket aces, baby. Oh, what a sight for sore eyes. I raise it up to 60 and I get 3 different callers. So we're 4 ways to a flop of 6-9 giggity 5 with 2 spades. When the action checks me out of position to 2 different people, probably a good spot to check all of my hands. I get the informational advantage of what villains do. It's definitely not the best board in the world for our hand. Then the action does check all the way through, so we're off to a turn, which is the ace of hearts, baby. Let's go. We might not be flopping sets, but we are turning them today. You'll love to see it when the big blind checks it over to me. I actually think we can bet for a really big size here. Even though we are double blocking it, I still think the hijack and the button has a bunch of offsuit ace-x hands that aren't going to fold. Totally easy for anyone to have a spade draw or something that's like a pair and a gut shot on this board. So I can get greedy with my bet sizing. I go ahead and bet 250 bangers, and then the action actually folds all the way around to SpongeBob SquarePants Pet Snail in this big blind, who check raises to 500. Oh, we are loving it when we have top set. The only question is, do we want to rip it all in for value to try and stack a hand like 2 pair or a worse set? Or do we want to go ahead and just throw in the smooth call and let the villain shove those hands on the river anyway? I think the higher EV play probably is just 3-bet ripping it here. With 2 different flush draws out there, we got to worry about the opponent getting scared off from stacking off on certain rivers. I throw in the call. Definitely a mistake though, and again, I'm just showing a bit of a passive bias this session. Whatever the case, we are heads up to a river, which is the 6 of clubs. So if we were worried about the straight, not that we were, we boat up, we have the second nuts here, and then the villain rips it all in for about 1.2k. I throw in a very excited snap call and show my hand in an absolutely excited haste. Then the villain shows pocket 5s. So what a sick cooler, set over set, and we are on the good end of it in this $3,600 pot. Let's go. Next hand, I chuck the cheeky little button straddle on, and there's 3 limps in front of me before I peel 7-4 offsuit. Pretty easy check here. Let's take a free flop, and it comes down 7-6-3 with 2 spades. The action checks all the way to Conspiracy King in the cutoff, who bets out for 75. Now the action's on me, and I'm actually very concerned that he has a better hand than me. He's been running super hot this session, and I think he's trying to lock it up a bit, and he's really not going to bet without a super strong hand. So it's actually kind of tempting to just make a hero fold just here and now. Being though that we get to play the pot in position and we have some equity to outdraw any strong range, I don't think we can be folding just yet, but I do throw in the call with a bit of hesitation going forward. Fortunately, I'm the only one that does. So we're heads up to a turn, which is the 10 of diamonds, and then the villain keeps betting 200. Now, I think the villain never ever has 8-9 in their range. I don't think they would have stabbed that into so many people when they're trying to lock up a bit. So I actually think we can turn our pair into a bluff here, bluff targeting over pairs that limps pre-flop, and even if the villain has a worse straight, 2 pair or a set, he probably will call 1 bet now, but I don't think he's going to want to call a huge bet on the river, being that he is running hot in this game and he is trying to lock it up. So I decide to attack the weakness with a raise right now. Need to start telling the story. I turn the straight, so I raise it up to 650, but then the villain just folds then and there. I'll take it. Thank you very much. Let's go. So we have over 10,000 bangers in our stack at this point. The sun run in the 5-10 game is absolutely real. Let's go. Let's hop into this next hand where I have ace-queen offsuit. Once I raise it up pre-flop and Karl Marx puts in the 3-bet. Now that we're heads up, I absolutely think we have the green light to put in a 4-bet bluff. Not even really a bluff with this late versus late position dynamic. So I go ahead and 4-bet it up. And then the villain chucks in a 5-bet. And I really think he has it this time. The 5-bet pre-flop is so strong, so I do lay down my ace queen, and the villain was kind enough to show us he did have pocket kings, so definitely ran into it this time. Next hand up, the hijack chucks on the straddle, cut off limps, and then C3PO makes it 110 on the button. I'm in the small blind with ace-8 of spades. Going to be playing 3-bet or fold out of the small blind, and folding is boring. I blaze it up to 420, and then I only get called by the robot. So we're heads up to a flop of queen, jack, 4 with 2 diamonds, no spades. My default strategy is to check when I'm out of position in a heads-up pot and gain the informational advantage of what the villain does. I think this is a good board to do that regardless. ridiculous. So I check it over to him, and he does check back. So when we see a free turn and it's the 9 of hearts, I definitely think this is a good spot to start running a bluff. I think if the villain had a strong hand like a queen or better, he probably would have betted himself. Plus, I can bet and get called by a lot of weaker hands on this turn, stuff like pocket 10, stuff like jack 10, stuff like 10-9, that will call now but not want to call a bet on the river. So let's start things off with a cheeky little Mr. Worldwide 305 Dale bet, and he does throw in the call. So it heads up to a river, which is the 6 of diamonds, putting in the front door flush. Now, I definitely think the villain is going to have a bunch of flushes in his range. Stuff like ace 5 of diamonds is probably just going to check on the flop most likely. So definitely a worry run into the nuts, and I don't want to go ahead and overbet bombing in this spot or anything. But we only have ace high here, so I definitely want to run a bluff. We need to find the best size that a hand like jack 10 will fold, and I decide that size is around 600 bangers. Let me know what you will bet in the comments below. Whatever the case, I made it 600. And then the villain is in the tank about 60 seconds, and I reckon his range pegged pretty right. Something like jack 10, pocket 10s that really doesn't know if it should hero call or not, and he eventually does throw in the call. Oh, you hate to see it. He sniffed us out. I show my hand, and then the villain shows queen 10 of hearts. No idea why the guy tanked on the river so long with a hand that strong. Whatever the case, the pot's been shipped over his way. You hate to see it. Next hand, I throw on the button straddle once again, and an unknown Florida man makes it 35 out of the big blind. When the action folds to me getting to play this pot heads up in position, can't imagine I'm going to be doing a bunch of folding, and when I peel 8-3 offsuit, if I was going to fold here, this would probably be the hand I would fold, but that's boring. I throw in the loose call here, and then we are heads up to a flop of 10-8-3, baby, with 2 clubs. Let's go. We make 2 pair with the trash hand, and then the villain bets 75, literally the size of the pot. Oh my god, you love to see it. Definitely have to raise here. I think they're going to be doing this with a lot of overpairs, a lot of flush draws, and we just want to try and stack those hands. So I go ahead and raise it up to 300 bangers, and then the villain calls. You love to see it. There's about 1 SPR left. So when the turn's a king of spades, definitely not the best turn card in the world. The villain could have king 10, he could have pocket kings, and even if he has queens or jacks, he's probably going to be a little bit discouraged from stacking off. Having said that though, when he checks it over to me, what am I going to check this hand back because I'm worried about running into a monster? Hell no, I'm all in 660. The villain throws in the call. We see a river, which is a jack of spades, and then we lose to even more. I table my hand, and he ends up mucking. So we play the trash hand pre-flop, and we end up stacking the villain. The sun run continues, baby. Next hand up, the same villain from the previous hand straddles the button, and it folds all the way to my cutoff with jack 2 suited. Definitely want to be opening pretty wide, being the last to act here. Whether this hand is too loose or not, I don't really give a shit. Folding is boring. I go ahead and make it 75, and the villain does call. So we are heads up to a flop of jack 10 with 2 clubs. What is going on? We are smashing flops. I just still stick with my default strategy and check it when I'm heads up out of position with the villain. Think he's going to stab at this board pretty frequently, and it's good to mix in a bit of deception sometimes here, but he does check back unfortunately, so we get a free turn, which is the king of spades. Let's start betting ourselves, and let's bet big. If the villain has a king, he's not going to go ahead and fold it when he finally hits top pair on the turn. I make it 200 bangers and overbetter the pot, and then villain does something I wasn't expecting at all. He rips it all in for 600, and I absolutely fucking hate this spot. I think he's going to have ace queen pure. I think he's going to have queen 9 pure. I think he might have actually checked some jacks on the flop, trying to be a bit deceptive himself. I wonder where I got that idea from. So I actually think we lose to a shit ton here. If he does have a hand like ace king, is he potentially ripping it all in? I mean, maybe. I guess it's not totally impossible, but honestly, I think most of his range is just shit that beats us, particularly when we have the nut low kicker in this spot. So really hate it. It's not a huge bet to call, but I think we are not good often enough where we actually can get away with a very disciplined hero fold here. So I decide to make it. I end up folding my jack deuce. The villain mucks his hand as well, so we'll never know for sure, but I really love that we are 8 hours into the session and we're still making disciplined folds like this. You love to see that. So after 8 hours of play, we did finally end up breaking the game, played all the way through. In terms of my quality of play, I did make some serious blunders, mostly like bet sizing mistakes where I just went too small in certain spots, and I do think I was showing a bit of a passive bias, a bit kind of playing a bit scared money in all honesty. Not really sure what created the tilt, but sometimes it did work out in my favour as I made plenty of really good disciplined folds in this spot. Found some good bluffs too, so I would give myself the A grade if it weren't for those massive blunders where I just bet too small and missed a bunch of value. So I'm going to land on the B+ grade, but I'm very on the cusp of reaching that A grade. Was rewarded very handsomely for the good effort, won over 5,000 bangers on the session. Boy, you love to see it. Of course, that money is going to go towards paying off our mortgage. We are almost 7% of the way there now. God, you love to see it. Make sure you hit subscribe and get the next video that comes out to see if we can go ahead and pay this mortgage off in the next 3 years. In the meantime though, if you want to watch a video where I played way more crazy and I was not afraid to use big bet sizes, I'm going to pop that video up on the screen now. For now though, I'm out of here. GG Gamble Gang.